Hello and welcome back to Matt Hayes' Tottenham blog and to the first episode of the new Transfer Talk series for the upcoming January transfer window. Today I'm going to be talking about the futures of Toby Alderweireld, Jan Vertonghen and Christian Eriksen, plus why Bruno Fernandes' new contract for Sporting Lisbon could actually be good news for Tottenham's pursuit of the player. So before I get started in that, if you do want more Transfer Talk videos, plus Premier League match previews, reviews, breaking news videos and interactive live streams, please don't forget to hit the subscribe button down below and click that notification bell so you get notified whenever I upload. So to dive straight into things, there's a lot of growing hope around the club that Toby Alderweireld and Jan Vertonghen could sign new contracts before their current contracts expire at the end of this season. Now, the majority of the hope is based around Toby Alderweireld more so than Jan Vertonghen, and Football.London are one of the outlets who are reporting this. They've said there's a growing belief inside the club that a new deal could be agreed with at least one, if not two, of the defenders. Now, Toby Alderweireld is someone who has spoken out quite a bit over the last week or so about his enjoyment and his happiness to be working with Jose Mourinho at Tottenham. And one of the direct quotes coming from him is, "I am happy that I'm playing. I'm proud to work with a manager who has won it all. I'm grateful that I can become a better player under him. I want to repay him for the faith he has shown in me." Now, there's obviously Mourinho's only been there for a week. He can't have done that much with Toby Alderweireld, which I think does bring us back to Mourinho's time at Manchester United and his pursuit of Toby Alderweireld then. So we do know that Mourinho is a big fan of Alderweireld, and I'm sure that's something the player is obviously, it's something that he knows, and it looks as though he is keen to continue his time at Tottenham under Mourinho. Now, as for Jan Vertonghen, it is Sky Sports who are reporting that he is the more likely to actually sign a new deal. They said he remains keen to discuss a new contract with Tottenham following the arrival of Jose Mourinho as head coach. Now, Sky Sports also pointed out that formal discussions are yet to take place between Daniel Levy and either of the players' representatives, but they do feel as though the players are more likely to sign contracts now that Mourinho has taken over at the club. And I think, I'm not sure if it's a representation of maybe that the falling out that either of them may have had with Pochettino, but I do think it's just more, they would see it now as more likely that we will win trophies now that Mourinho has taken over from the club, taken over from Pochettino. And while, it is a bit disappointing with what Pochettino really did with them as players, they really turned their careers around. Both of them became much better players than they were during their time under Pochettino. I think it's a bit unfair that, it was mainly because of him that they didn't want to be there, whether that is a relationship breakdown or his inability to win trophies during his time at the club, who knows. But it is obviously good that they will be staying at the club for a lot longer now, but you do have to question their, I suppose, loyalty to Mauricio Pochettino. Now, the third player is, of course, Christian Eriksen, and this is one that is still up in the air a bit. Mourinho has been asked about Christian Eriksen quite a bit since he took over, which I think is fair because, we have this news of Alderweireld and Vertonghen potentially signing new deals, whereas with Christian Eriksen, the very first thing we heard was he's now more keen than ever to leave the club, which Tottenham fans, it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world for us because, a lot of us have wanted him to leave recently because he hasn't really shown much desire on the pitch. His performances haven't been there in terms of quality or effort. And I know we saw a bit more from him in the game against Olympiacos, but, he hasn't been the player that he has been in the past, and it's just not someone we want in the team because he's a liability at times. He's made a few sub appearances where he just has been the worst player in the pitch. That game against Everton especially, some of the stats coming out about him in that one were absolutely dreadful. Now, Mourinho, before his appointment at Tottenham, I think this was actually towards the end of last season, he was speaking, I'm not sure if it was about the situation at Tottenham or players running down their contracts in general, but he said on Sky Sports, I think, "I don't like to keep players that don't want to stay at the club. I think it is always really difficult. I'm not thinking about the economical perspective, I mean more from a motivational point of view." And he brought up the example of his first reign at Chelsea when Ian Robben was a player who was very keen to leave the club, and Chelsea got that deal done as quickly as possible, selling him to Real Madrid. And there were no financial reasons for Chelsea to make that deal. It was purely because the player didn't want to be there, and Mourinho decided it was best to let him go. Now, we know Eriksen has been benched for both of Mourinho's games in charge so far. The first one against West Ham, and he was asked about that before the game against Olympiacos, and he said it's not just about continuity. Continuity is very important, but our future is also very important. My decisions about him starting him or not starting, selecting or not selecting, will be based on a perspective of a future. I cannot hide that. We have a present, and in football we have to focus on the present, in this case the game tomorrow, but it's a club where you have to think about the future. So a few things to take from that, I suppose. The first one would be his very different approach to the situation from what Pochettino had. Because Pochettino said quite a few times about these three players, his choices of who's going to start the game is not going to be based on things going on off the pitch. and whether or not they're running down their contracts or if they have expressed a desire to leave, like Christian Eriksen did. He said he's just going to choose purely based on the 11 that he thinks is best suited to winning that game. And Mourinho here saying no, that matters off the pitch do matter a lot to him and will affect his selection. And also the fact that he is talking so much about the future. He's a short-term manager. He's shown that in the majority of his posts so far throughout his managerial career. But he's talking a lot about the future since he has taken over from the club. And right from that first interview, he's expressed how keen he is to actually continue the work that Pochettino has done at the club. So a lot of the worries that we did have about him taking over, he's really doing a lot to kind of kill those worries. And he's talking so much about the future, which is obviously great to hear. But personally, I am still a bit sceptical about him in the long term. But I'm starting to get more and more kind of hopeful about the short term and what he can actually achieve at the club. Now the last thing he said about Eriksen was he insisted that he would be a key part of the squad whenever he left, and he didn't give any suggestion as to when that might be. But he said about Eriksen, proper guy, loves the club, loves his colleagues, amazing colleague in the dressing room, so it doesn't matter, he's one of us until the last day. Now he did also say he has had quite a few conversations with Christian Eriksen since taking over last Wednesday. And again, being asked about it, he said you need to wait and see the Amazon documentary next week, because the only people who were in on the conversation were himself, Eriksen, and the Amazon camera crew. So we're really going to learn a lot about what has gone on in the last couple of weeks when this documentary comes out next summer. There are a lot of reports that even Pochettino's sacking was actually caught on camera. So there's a lot of questions that are being asked right now, and we will get answers to them after this season. I'm not sure if these are questions we do want the answers to and just how good or bad they might be, but we are going to learn a lot when this documentary does come out. Now, before I move on to Bruno Fernandes, I just want to touch quickly on the Zlatan Ibrahimovic situation. If you didn't see the news over the last couple of days, Mourinho has completely ruled out a move for Ibrahimovic. And I think it was kind of one of those jokey ones when Mourinho did take over, people talking about Nemanja Matic and Marwan Fellaini. I personally never thought there was anything to the Ibrahimovic rumours. And even if there was, I didn't think that would be a move the player would be suited to, I suppose. He is coming towards the end of his career. He's just left LA Galaxy. It's looking at the moment like he may be moving back to AC Milan, but he's already taken steps to start his career after he retires, because he's just taken over a big stake in a Swedish club called Hammarby. So it's very clear he is coming towards the end of his career, and that's not the type of player that Tottenham need to bring in now. But just quickly, the quote from Mourinho about this move, he said, "We have the best striker in England, one of the top 2-3 strikers in the world. It doesn't make any sense for a striker of Zlatan's dimension in his late 30s, but that can play at any club in the world, to come to a club where we have Harry Kane." So again, Mourinho talking so highly about this squad, one that he's really happy to have taken over. If he has Harry Kane as one of the top 2-3 strikers in the world, and he doesn't feel any need to bring in someone else to compete with him, which is obviously great. Now, about this Bruno Fernandes thing, over the last couple of days, Fernandes has signed a new contract with Sporting Lisbon. Immediately a lot of Tottenham fans were a bit frustrated with that, saying we missed our chance in the summer, and it's a big blow for our pursuit of the player because he signed a new contract kind of saying he does want to stay at Lisbon. But this might actually be good news for Tottenham. The contract that he has signed was a clause in his previous contract that said if Sporting Lisbon did receive an offer of more than €60 million for the player, he would be entitled to a pay rise. So, excuse me, this is purely proof and evidence that Tottenham did make a bid of more than €60 million for the player in the summer. Now, we did hear from the Sporting Lisbon president, Frederico Varandas, in September, saying that Tottenham were the only team who made a serious bid. He said about Fernandes, "We prepared for his sale by putting a fair price on his worth, and we had bids, but only a serious offer from Tottenham that was €45 million plus 20 million in add-ons based on winning the Premier League and the Champions League. Finding these add-ons difficult, I decided not to accept." So, I think when he did make those comments, we kind of took it for granted. We accepted that it was true, but we know a lot of presidents around Europe aren't always entirely honest. We only have to look at Jean-Michel Aulas at Lyon and what happened with him, and Tanguy Ndombele, and even go back in the past when we signed Hugo Lloris. Some of the things he said, which were eventually found out to be purely untrue. Now, this new contract that Bruno Fernandes has signed, according to a number of sources, is, as I said, just a clause that obliges Sporting Lisbon to give him a pay rise. And there are obviously going to be some new clauses in this contract. The length of the contract is the same, so until 2023, but his release clause has been increased from €60 million to €100 million. Now, the reason that Tottenham's bid of 65 million over the summer wasn't enough is because Sporting Lisbon wanted the whole 60 million upfront. and they made it clear that if they did get a bid of 60 million plus, they would accept it. But Daniel Levy, of course, being Daniel Levy, decided to go about it a different way and ultimately failed to sign the player. Now, this €100 million release clause also has a smaller clause of €60 million, which is obviously the same as the previous contract. But if a club makes a bid of €60 million, Sporting Lisbon do have to enter negotiations with the club and also inform Bruno Fernandes of the negotiations. So, you may look at it as something that's making him more likely to stay at Lisbon in the long run. But a player of his quality playing in a league like that, in a team like that, in the Europa League as well, you do have to imagine his time at the club has come towards an end, because he's 25 now. Looking at his numbers, they're absolutely insane. He scored 32 goals last season from a midfield position, and this season already he's 5 goals and 5 assists in 10 games in the league. And he scored twice last night against PSV in the Europa League to send Sporting through to the last 32. So he really is coming out with these incredible numbers, and he's someone who would fit really well into this Tottenham team, especially with the doubts surrounding Christian Eriksen's future at the moment. They're two very, very similar players, and he's almost a like-for-like replacement. Over the summer, we kind of more keen on Dybala being that replacement, but I think it is more likely that it will be Bruno Fernandes, and hopefully the Portuguese link between Fernandes and Mourinho, and obviously the potential future that Tottenham do have, winning trophies over the next couple of years, could be enough to entice Bruno Fernandes to London, because there are going to be a lot of teams who are looking at him because of those numbers, and playing in the Portuguese starting team as well. He's a top quality player, and if he is someone that we can bring to Tottenham, it would be absolutely great for us. But it's going to take a lot of money to do that, and we don't know if Mourinho is going to have that money, and if he's even going to be the one who's in charge of the transfers. We haven't heard much more about bringing in a director of football, but it is a great opportunity, for us to sign a player like that who does want to move to the club, as we heard in the summer. So hopefully that is something that Tottenham will pursue in January, but we're not going to find out until the time comes. Make sure to put down in the comments below what you do think about Bruno Fernandes potentially joining Tottenham and the future of that trio, Alderweireld, Eriksen and Vertonghen. If you have enjoyed this video, please don't forget to give it a big thumbs up and subscribe down below if you haven't already. Thanks for watching.